Welcome back to another episode of Feelin the Healin with Foltzy. I'm Matt Foltz, your host, and I am thrilled today to have Terance Mathis with me today to shed some light on his career and all the things he's done. An amazing athlete, amazing father, amazing husband. Um, Went to New Mexico, University of New Mexico.
Yeah.
Played football and basketball there, right? Played for the Jets, the Falcons, and the Steelers. Put up huge numbers in receptions, reception yards
Yes.
in both college and pro. 1994 Pro Bowl.
Yes.
1998 Atlanta Falcons Man of the Year, which speaks volumes to the kind of guy he is. So, Terance, thanks for being with me today.
Thank you, man.
Yeah,
Thanks for having me.
You're an awesome guy.
Let's have some fun.
Let's have some fun. So first I want to ask you about childhood, growing up. Tell me about just what you did, kind of how you led up through high school and such.
My childhood was pretty cool, and it was pretty cool because of the fact that I grew up in Detroit, Michigan. We didn't have much. I remember moving around a lot. My mom renting places and this and that, and I remember, just the struggles. But as a child, it was fun. It was in a different place all the time, and I started playing football at a young age. But I fell in love with football when I was 6 years old. My uncle was coaching a little league football team, and I begged my mom to let me go with him to one of the practices. And he took me to the practice, and he had to coach, so I had to stay out the way. So he gave me a football. And seriously, and I played with this football for 2 hours. And it was amazing to me. So as I got older, I always had a football in my hand. We were always playing football in the street, at the park, against different neighborhoods whatsoever. And my childhood was it was amazing because it was always competitive. It was either racing a neighbor, racing a cousin, or we always was competitive, competing against each other. So when it was time for me when I moved to Georgia, I was 12 years old, and that's when I fell in love with basketball, because we moved in the fall and I missed the season. I missed the football season. And I said, well, Mom, I had never played basketball. Really, we used to shoot around, but I have never really played. So she put me on the YMCA team, and I went, wow, and I fell in love with it. And I said, oh my God, this is my second love. I got two things that I love. But my football career was what I loved to do, and I knew that's what was going to take me the furthest. But I took my shots at basketball every opportunity I had. So as I got to high school, funny story was I went to a high school and I was the new guy in the neighborhood, and everyone knew each other, and it was the freshman team, and I was a quarterback, and I wanted to play quarterback. And the coach he would overlook me because he knew all the other guys from the park, and had relationships with them, this and that. And I had to fight hard to get the starting job. And finally, he gave me the starting job, and we won all 8 games, and I was a starting quarterback. And so now when it was time for me to move up, it got better and better. Everybody was like expecting me. So then we moved, another move out of maybe 10 or 12 since I was a kid, and I'm only 14 years old, and we're moving again. So we move out of the district and go to another school, and here we go, starting all over again. And coach didn't know me whatsoever, and he let me backtrack. When I went over there, it was springtime, so I played summer basketball, and everybody was like, wow. So I was already playing varsity basketball as a 9th grader. And then when it was time for football, I went out. Usually where I came from, the coach would say, hey, you come dress with the varsity and practice with the varsity, or you just play JV. So I went to JV and was practicing with JV the whole time, and I was doing very well with JV. Then one time the head football varsity coach called me in and said, you come over here, who do you think you are? This and that, because I guess I was above everybody else. He says, well, since you playing JV, you're going to stay on JV. I said, I'm looking like, why is this man going crazy like that? So our first JV game, this is the honest to God truth. My first JV game, I played quarterback. I threw a touchdown. I ran for a touchdown. I had an interception when I played defense and ran a punt back for a touchdown. So the head coach, that Monday, the head coach says, you know, you're not playing JV anymore. You're playing varsity. And I was like, well. And so I went to varsity and I didn't play much. This was my 10th grade year. I didn't play much until the last game of the year. He decided to play me at tailback. And I got in the game, had like 6 carries for 65 yards or something like that in the fourth quarter. And then all of a sudden he was like, okay. Then that's where my high school career started to really, people started to know me in the county. My junior year, then my senior year, I played quarterback. And then I started getting recruited. I wasn't getting recruited a lot. I got a lot of letters,
Yeah.
boxes full of letters. And a few things happened in my career, especially football wise, that motivated me. And I played all the way up until my 13th year in the NFL with a chip on my shoulder. When I was 9 years old, I wanted to play football. My mom took me to a park. The coach came over and she says, well, my son would like to play for your team. He looked at my mom, looked at me, was like, well, ma'am, no disrespect, but your son is way too small to play with my boys. Oh, my mom went off. She was livid. She went off on this guy, and I was covering my ears because I never heard my mom talk like that before. So we're driving home, and we get to the stoplight, and she grabs me in my chest and pulls me. She said, and she was livid. She said, don't ever let anybody tell you can't do anything.
I love that.
She said, don't you ever, do you hear me? I said, yes, ma'am. And then fast forward, my senior year in high school, I get called out of classroom. Coach wants to see you. There's a recruiter in there wants to meet you. So I go. I didn't know who it was. The guy didn't tell me who it was. So I get there. The guy comes out and he looks at me. It's funny. He looks at me and he kind of look around and look at me again. And he says, son, I'm watching your film. You are a great talent, but you're way too small to play for the University of Tennessee or in the SEC. So I reverted all the way back to when I was 9 years old.
Mm-hmm.
And in my mind, I was giving it to him. And I left there, went back to the classroom. I was so hot. I was so mad. And I said, I'm going to prove to them all. So then Georgia Southern came in. And Tracy Ham used to play at Georgia Southern quarterback. He was a senior. The offensive coordinator said, hey, we want you to replace Tracy at quarterback, blah, blah, blah. So I was excited. I'm going to Georgia Southern. I was like, okay. What? I said, Mom, I think I'm going to Georgia Southern. 3 weeks passed. I didn't hear from the coach. So we're panicking. And I'm like, oh, my God. So in May of my senior year, I get a phone call, and it's the coach. He says, hey, sorry, we lost contact, but I'm at the University of New Mexico now. And I want you to come out here and play for me. And first thing I said, can I drink the water out there? Then he says, no, son, it's New Mexico, not Mexico. And I was like, so then I had to get, back then, you had those Britannica encyclopedias.
Yeah.
You didn't have
Google
Google or anything like that. So I had to go look at it where Albuquerque was. And I said, oh, okay. So I went on a recruiting trip. And the day I was leaving, I met with the head coach. And it was Joe Lee Dunn. Everybody in the SEC know who Joe Lee Dunn is. And he says, he looks at me. And he says, sit down. He says, well, Ben Griffith was the offense coordinator. He says, well, Ben thinks you can be a player for us. He said, I got one scholarship left. And he said, well, I guess I'll give it to you. And I shook his hand, and he says, welcome. And that was it. It wasn't like, how are you? Tell me about your family. Tell me. It was like, that's how Joe Lee Dunn was. And so I signed my scholarship June 11th, 1985, 3 hours before I walked across the stage for graduation.
Wow.
Yeah. Yeah. And
you played basketball there too?
I played basketball there too.
And you got to do both. And
it was cool because my um, the head coach for the basketball team used to be a high school coach in Georgia. So and then he coached at the College of Charleston, and then he went to New Mexico. And he knew who I was when I came in, and he was kept, hey, come out and play, come out and play. So after my freshman and sophomore year, I was always beat up. And I was like, Coach, I can't play on a bad ankle. I can't play with a bad shoulder whatsoever. So my junior year, I finally went out, dressed a couple of games, didn't play much. Some Christmas break came up, and I got into some academic issues, and I didn't play football. I mean, I didn't play basketball for them that spring. Luke Longley, who's played for the Bulls, was on that team at the
Nice.
time. So they would gear me up to be the starting point guard for that team. And I had to disappoint them, and I had to leave school and do something different to get back into school.
Okay.
Yeah.
So at some point, though, you made your way over to wide receiver, and then you're putting up numbers. Like there's all kinds of stats back in the day. You were at even the Falcons. You were
Yeah.
top
Yeah.
three.
Yeah.
Over Julio Jones. You're
Mhm.
you're getting it done.
Mhm.
I mean, you're catching balls.
Well, what happened my freshman year in college, I went in there as I told you, I signed the last scholarship they had. So I was in there. Freshmen came in first, and I was the sixth. It was six quarterbacks, freshman quarterbacks,
Mm.
and I was number 6 on the depth chart. And then when the full depth chart came, I was number 10 on the depth chart because you had 3 upperclassmen. So I was number 10 on the full depth chart, but number 6 as a freshman. So the freshman had 3 days of practice before the other guys came in. After the third day, I was number 1 freshman quarterback. So I remember this day. It was the last practice we had before the weekend, and the next week the upperclassmen came in. Coach Rick Trickett, who used to coach at Florida State, he was at New Mexico. He was the offensive line coach, and it was just finished raining, so the field was on grass. The field was a little wet, muddy, whatsoever. So by the time practice was almost over with, and I played quarterback, he looked at me and he just started cursing, saying, "Why aren't you dirty like everybody else?" And I guess I says, "Because they can't tackle me, coach." And he started throwing mud on me. He said, "You gonna be like everybody else and throwing mud on me." And so this made me so mad. And then he says, "Oh, you think you hot stuff? Wait until the upperclassmen come in here and see what you're gonna do when they come in here." He says, "It's gonna be a different story and this and that." And I was so livid. I couldn't wait. So we went through about the weekend. We had a scrimmage went through a week of practice, and we had a scrimmage. So I'm sitting over there. So the office coordinator comes over to me, and I didn't. This was we had about went through the first quarter whatsoever. So the office coordinator came over to me, and he says, Joe Lee's not happy that you're sitting over here on the sideline. He wants you out there playing.
Mm-hmm.
He said, "But I can't put you in front of these upperclassmen." He said, "So I'm gonna put you in at receiver. Do you know what to do?" I said, "Yes." So he puts me in, and we run a reverse. I go 60 yards untouched. And everybody's going, "Oh my God." I played quarterback. I threw a touchdown pass. I ran for a touchdown. Then that receiver I caught. So I had 4 touchdowns in that scrimmage with the upperclassmen. So I'm jogging off and glance over at the offensive line coach like, "What now?" And give him that look. And he kind of looks at me like, "Okay,
Yeah.
okay." And then the second game of the year, I started at wide receiver and had 4 catches for 160 yards and 2 touchdowns. And I said, "Oh my, I think I like this." I have never played receiver in my life.
But you just did.
I'd never played in my life. And it was just something that happened. And then as the years went on, I said, I got to hone my craft.
Yeah.
And here's was one of those aha moments for me. After my sophomore year, I go over to the facility after Christmas break, go see my offensive coordinator, and we talk. And he says, "Hey, I want to introduce you to somebody." So we go to the meeting room, or the film room. So It's dark, but you can see a little bit, so the film is running. So my coach says, "Hey," to this one, it was a scout in there. He said, "Hey, you see anybody you like on this film?" He says, "Yeah, you got some guys I really like." He says, "But who is this little number 15 that's keep making plays over there?" He started laughing, so he turned on the light. He says, "Here he is right here. It's Terance Mathis." So he came up. He turned off the film. He said, "Son, if you keep doing what you're doing, you're going to have a long career in the NFL." I was 19 years old. It was the Minnesota Vikings. And I said, I had my aha moment. When you're a kid, you always say, I want to do this.
Yeah.
I'm going to play professional. I told my mom, I'm going to play professional football. First thing I'm going to do, I'm going to buy your own house so you don't have to rent anymore and all this stuff. And then when he told me that, I took it to a different level.
Yeah.
My mindset changed, my training changed, all these things changed. And it was time. And I was like, I can do this. And from my freshman to sophomore year to my junior year, I went from, I think I caught my sophomore year like 50 something balls. To my junior year, I had 75. And that's how quick it jumped.
Yeah.
And touchdowns. And I was a third team All-American after my junior year. Then my senior year, after I had to leave school. When I came back, it was just one of those years that was just it was one of those years and careers that has never been done in college football ever.
Yeah.
And I was consensus All-American.
Yep.
I broke numerous NCAA records, conference records, school records, and I did something no other players ever done in college football. I had over 250 catches, went over 4,500 yards. I was second career-wise in touchdowns all time, and I was second career-wise in all-purpose yards all time.
I know.
And it was like, a season no other receiver has ever had. And you think about all those receivers in the Hall of Fame. The National Football Hall of Fame did not do what I did in my career in college.
You were crushing it. You crushed it.
Yeah.
And in NFL, you put big numbers up. And I think something like you saw when you said you took the training to another level. I think sometimes young people, they don't want to put in the they don't want to put in the on and off season training, as well as the eating right and taking the doing the right time, doing the right things with your time.
Right.
And I mean, you did all that.
Well, the training part, it's one of those things if you want to or not. It's all about want to. And the thing was with me, especially when I got to the Falcons and realized what I was, and I used to get up early in the morning, I had a weightlifting coach. My weightlifting coach was funny because he was a professional bodybuilder. So I'm training with a professional bodybuilder.
Yeah.
The first time I trained with him, I'll throw up. I'm like, oh my God. I said, I don't think I want to do this. But I got bigger and stronger with him. So in the mornings, early mornings, I used to train with him. And then by 10:30, I'm at the practice facility during our team training. And then at 3:30, 4 o'clock in the afternoon, I'm with my speed coach. And I used to do that 3 days a week. But I used to be at the facility 4 days a week. But I did that other training 3 days a week.
Yeah.
And I did that for years. And then when I got married, my wife was like, where are you going this early? She didn't see me basically until maybe lunchtime and then dinner time at sometimes, 3 times a week. But she understood what I was doing, what it took to play at a high level. And then here's the thing that young athletes cannot do is they cannot go out mentally and train by themselves. They always need to hire somebody to help them train, to teach them things, this and that and this. I did that because of the fact that I had to take my body and my speed to a different level. But once I understood that, I knew how to train by myself.
Yeah.
And I tell people like, you don't have a quarterback, how you go? I says, I mentally catch balls.
Yeah.
For my conditioning, I used to do 2-minute drills. One down, one back. And I'm pretend like I caught the ball, got tackled, got to get the line of scrimmage, caught the ball out of bounds, timeouts, and that was my conditioning. And people used to look at me like, what is this guy doing? He's playing football by himself. He got to be crazy. No, but guess what? What it does is when it's time to play, I've already done that in my mind
Yeah.
100 times before it even happened. And young people don't understand that. When I'm on the bus going to the stadium, I'm in the game plan and I'm going, I know exactly. If it's 3rd and 6, I know what 4 plays we're going to. And if it's what hash is on, I know exactly. Now I can break it down to 2 plays. So when 3rd down comes and whatever yardage is, I know what play is going to be run and I know what my job is. And then I'm playing it in my head. And it's the wildest thing. And I try to get my son to do it too. Before I start every season, I take my notebook and I write down the schedule. And I go, well, I'm going to have 8 catches against this team, 100 and something, and 3 touchdowns. And I go all the way through. Then I count it up at the end. I said, ooh, that's 80-something catches and then all these touchdowns.
Yeah.
So then after every game, I look. I said, ooh, I came short, but I was there. Then some games I got, ooh, I doubled it. And because if you don't set goals for yourself, you just doing stuff and hoping for a good result. But you gotta set goals for
Man, I
yourself.
love that. I think it was maybe Steve Harvey that talks about making he writes stuff on a board.
Yeah.
He puts it up on a board about his mental board, and that's it. And that
That's
was
it.
huge. That mental preparedness is amazing.
It's amazing because of the fact that I tell you, man, when I'm on a bus, I'm playing the game in my head.
Yeah.
I'm looking at every situation. So when it comes up, I may get caught off guard maybe less than 10% of the time, but the rest of the time I know what's coming. And if you know what's coming, you're gonna have success.
So one thing that I'm interested in more and more is just the DNA of humans, that we kind of were all born to be something. We're all born to be great at something. I think some people find it, some people don't. You know, when I was in high school, I think it was my senior year, I was a fullback, but you know, you have to practice both sides of the ball. So I was practicing linebacker, but I never played linebacker. But we were going over the other team's plays and what they were going to be doing. I remember asking Coach Poulos, "Hey, Coach, and it was a ridiculous scenario. You know, the tight right formation, fullback cracks down weak side. This goes this way, and I come up and I kind of perplex him, and he goes, I don't know, son, just play football.
Right.
Just play football." And it's always stuck with me because if you're born to be something, you can have a playbook,
Right.
but you're going to do what so you're Terance Mathis. You have the playbook, but you adapt, and you're just great.
Right.
You're a great football player, and
Thank you.
and everybody's meant to be great at something.
Right.
And I think that I think we all, and for our kids, we want our kids to find what they're supposed to be in life, right?
Right. I've learned, even at my age today, I'm learning new things all the time. But one thing I try to tell young people, especially with coaches, with trainers, whatsoever. For instance, I have a buddy of mine. We talked on the phone the other day, and we were talking about Deion Sanders and why he's having so much success today. And he says, it makes sense. He says, if I have a son and you come in my living room, Terance, and want my son to play wide receiver for your football team, he's going to play wide receiver for your football team. Because not only did you do it at the highest level, you can show him. If you can't, I always feel as a coach, if you cannot demonstrate what you want a kid to exactly do, you fell in that kid and you fell in a football team. You can write it all up on the board and says, well, you see this and you see this, you run this. If this happens, you adjust to this. Okay, it makes sense. But then when you get out there, it doesn't look like that. Wait a minute, coach, you said he was going to be like this on the board, but what do I do? So it's almost like now I got to say, hold up, son. Let me show you. You got to line up. Here's the coverage. Now watch. This is only one or two things they can do when we're in this formation. So if they do this, they do this, you're good. If they do something different, this is your adjustment. And then you run it for them. It says, this is why. This is where you're supposed to be. And they look at you like, wow. And it makes sense to them. And then you look at a guy like Dion who has a staff that's that way. And then you have a guy, it's I get upset, my goal one day is to be a college head football coach. And I get upset because over the last 10 years, I probably applied for 200 jobs and only had one interview. One interview because I didn't have enough experience. So I get upset. And over the last few weeks, when people ask me about that and about experience, I answer it this way. It says, well, other coaches have a lot of experience. I says, no, a lot of other coaches had a lot of jobs. That's a difference.
That's right.
I says, if you look at their resume, they may have coached 15, 20 places. So what does that tell you? Probably 90% of the time they got fired.
Yeah, they're not doing it right.
They got fired.
That's right.
If you're that good, you wouldn't have been in 20, 25 different spots.
That's right.
I said, so you would rather hire a coach over the last 3 years, had losing seasons because he's experienced. What has he did for you lately? What has he done for you lately? And that's the thing. So it frustrates me to that perspective that you would rather hire a coach that you say, oh, he has experience, but than a coach that is in today's game.
Now you were offensive coordinator at
Savannah
State.
Mm-hmm.
And then you've done some high school coaching, which is awesome because that's the ability for these kids to have the mentor you could give them was just phenomenal. I mean, what would you see any difference in coaching kids today? I mean, back in the day when you and I grew up. I mean, did you see any differences in that or?
It's a big difference because back in the day, you could yell at a kid, get in his face, blah, 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 make him do push-ups, make him run laps, this and that, and kids would take it. In today's game, kids will walk out and quit. Or they'll tell their daddy, and daddy say, hey, you ain't gonna treat my kid like that.
Yeah.
So when me as a leader, as a head coach, I gotta treat these kids like if it was my son.
Yeah.
And how my son to be treated. So even when I hire guys to coach with me and they have young kids and they get yelling at the kids, I said, hold up. I said, I have a son that age, and I wouldn't want you to talk to my son like that. So until you get a son that age, you wouldn't understand what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
So the thing is, today's kids, you have to be on their level. I don't mean you have to dumb down to their level, but you got to be able to reach them, understand them. Dion does a good job because he understands this generation. He got 2 boys in this generation, right?
Yeah.
And a daughter.
Yeah.
So guess what? He's around them every day, and he understands their needs, what they're going through, from social media to peer pressure to all those things. So he understands what they're going through. So he can relate to every kid in that locker room. I don't care. They've been so, well, that's just the black kids. No. All kids go through the same thing.
Sure.
Black, white, green, brown, red, purple, doesn't matter. They've all experienced the same things. Mm-hmm. As a football coach, as a head coach, as a leader, if you don't get to know your kids and their families, you can't be successful. You can't just say, like you told the one coach, your coach told you, I don't know, just go out and play football. You wouldn't imagine in today's game how many coaches tell their kids that because they don't know.
Yeah.
For real, they don't. When they say, I don't know, just go out and play, because they really don't know. They don't at every level. I am appalled when I watch Little League football practices and see that the caveman type of practices that they have, where they have 2 kids line up, one has a football, one don't, in between the cones and the dummies, and they run and hit each other. And then if it's a good hit, they go,
Yeah.
This kid is 7 years old. You just rattled his brain. Imagine what he's going to be in the next 11 years if you keep teaching him that.
Yeah.
It's not going to be any good.
Yeah. Well, that kind of takes me to now, because I know you did some pre-combine training with
Yes.
some of these young men and helping teach them kind of that next level,
Right.
what they need to do, which I thought was pretty cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was so. I mean, I probably taught about mental toughness.
Yeah.
Talk about the things they need to be doing.
The physical health, mental health, all those things. It was life skills. Basically, it was life skills. You know, we talked about money. We talked about, you know, hey, if you get if you're blessed enough to get drafted, make the roster, and you sign your contract, and I used to put it to him like this. I said, understand this. And this was what, almost 10 years ago when I was doing this.
Yeah.
And look at the money today. And I says, understand this. You get a signing bonus and you get salary. Why wouldn't you take that signing bonus after you bought mama a house and a car, yourself a decent house and a car, whatsoever, buy you some nicer clothes and this and that? I get that. You know, take care of you.
Yeah.
And then once you, and say that costs you, say if you get a $10 million signing bonus, you probably gonna right away, you probably get 6.5 of that, maybe after taxes. So now, if say you got $6.5 million, you buy mama a house, you're not gonna go out and buy your mama $1 million house, well, and you shouldn't go out and buy yourself $1 million house. So say you spend $1 million on 2 houses, okay? So now you got $5 million left. So okay, you're gonna spend $500,000 on your car and your clothes and stuff like that, your furniture and all that stuff. All right, now you got $5 million left. What are you gonna do with that? Put it in an annuity. Put it away. Because guess what? You're about to get a salary.
That's right.
You're about to get a
Hey, you're about to have
yeah. You're about to make minimum $1 million a year for the next 5 years. So I don't care if you blow the whole salary. You got $5 million collecting interest.
Yeah.
By the time you finish playing 10, 12 years, if you're lucky, man.
Please tell me these young guys today have a Terance Mathis out there teaching them this stuff.
Oh, well.
I hope. I hope.
Here's the thing about the business that's scary to me is that agents know how much money there is out there. And they're going to make you happy because they don't want to be fired, because they don't want nobody else to land the golden goose who lays the golden egg. So they want to keep them. So they're going to do whatever. So when you run out of money or get released from a football team, it doesn't bother them because it's a revolving door. Next guy up.
Yeah.
Next guy come in. Every year they find more money, more money, more money, more money. My whole thing is this. If we can teach these kids longevity in the game and teach them money about money, they would live a long, long life financially when they're done. Because here's the thing. You didn't play football, say if you started football at 9, you get drafted at 21, you didn't have any money all these years. And then all of a sudden, you get money and you go crazy. You made it all this time without money. So have that same mentality.
Yeah.
You got money. Don't let it. I always tell people, I says, the only thing changed in my life when I got money was my address and my bank account. I'm still the same guy, you know, and I am, I'm frugal, but when I was young, I did spend a lot of money. But after a while, when I got married, my wife looked at me like, hey, we got to live forever,
Yeah.
And I said, oh, yeah, you're right. And we got kids. You got to stop spending like that.
Yeah.
And, you just got to. You got to be smart with your money.
Well, and that was my next kind of go-to, and you kind of already hit on it. Just advice for young football players or really any young athlete. Money management is a great one. That's really, but we hit on mental toughness.
Right.
You kind of hit on a lot of stuff there. And I don't know if you have any other advice for any of these young kids growing up. I mean, probably keep their head right. I don't know.
Well, I think one of the biggest advice that I have for these high school kids is stop chasing offers. You only can play for one school.
Yeah.
So, you get an offer and say, all I have is one offer. That means that one school loves you. You're competing against other people to say, I'm going to get more offers than them. So guess what you're doing? You're worrying about offers instead of worrying about your business. So now, if you get that offer that you wanted, say it's Alabama, and you get to Alabama and realize that there's 4 other guys at my position that they gave scholarships to. You're not the only one they're recruiting
Yeah.
at your position. So now you get there thinking, I'm that dude, but then there's 5 dudes at your position that's already been there.
Yeah.
Then they sign 5 more. So you going, wait, when am I going to play? This was where I wanted to be. Coach said, yeah, we love to have you, blah, blah, blah. Okay. But did you think about when are you going to play and how successful you're going to be? If college is all you want, okay, that's fine. If you want to play in the NFL at the highest level, you got to be on the field.
That's right.
I don't care if you sat on the bench for 4 years and went to the University of Alabama. I go to South Alabama and start for 4 years or 3 years and get some numbers and be an all-conference player there or MVP in that conference, and then get drafted. I tell kids, I said, tell me the difference between a 55-pound dumbbell in Alabama and a 55 dumbbell at South Alabama. What's the difference? And do you know most of them go, it's the same weight.
They're trying to figure out something different, aren't they?
I was like, it's the same weight.
Yeah.
Every school, just because its name doesn't make it best for you.
Yeah.
Find your best fit.
Well, one last thing, and I like to end on this, is I want the Terance Mathis key strategy to success or keys to success. Something that Terance Mathis might tell his kids, or somebody says, "Hey, these are the important things that I think in life, or that are going to help you get through life, whether it's the struggles of whatever."
It's really 6 things, but in 2 different categories. So the first category, I always say, love God. Put God first. Put God first. He wants all the glory of all your success because he's giving you the opportunity to do what you would want to do.
Absolutely, yeah.
Secondly, your family. Because when all friends leave you, girlfriend, wife, or whoever it is, your family is always going to be there because they seen you before you became who you became to the world. And thirdly, your health. I says, because if you're not healthy, you're no good to your family at all. So your health, so you be able to be productive every day. And then the third thing comes from a different point of view. It's follow the instructions of your teachers when you're in school. They don't get paid a whole lot of money to do what they do. They do it because they care. You think they come to school every day because they make millions and millions of dollars? They do it because they love it, because they want you to be the best that you can be. Secondly, follow the instructions of your coaches. So you can't go out there and just do whatever you want to do whatsoever, blah, 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 and think you're going to be successful. Follow the instructions of your coaches. Because again, especially high school coaches, they're not making a whole lot of money. They're doing it because they want to do it, they love to do it, and it's a joy for them, most of them. And thirdly, which I think is the most important of these 3, is you have to love yourself. If you love yourself, you wouldn't drink and drive, you wouldn't do drugs, you wouldn't have unprotected sex, you wouldn't do things that was detrimental to you living a full, healthy life if you love yourself. That one is the hardest one to achieve. If you think about it, even as adults, as grown people, that one, you can ask a grown person, say, do you love yourself? Yes, I do love myself. And then Then he says, well, what's your days like? What's your weekends like?
Mm-hmm.
Now let me ask you again, do you love yourself?
Man, that's powerful.
Think about it.
That is real powerful. You're right,
Man,
because if you loved yourself,
you wouldn't
you
do
wouldn't
those detrimental things that will harm you and your family. I've been there before, and I thought I loved myself, but then how can I love others if I don't love myself first?
Yeah.
So I wasn't loving myself because I was harming others around me. That means I didn't love myself. So once I started loving myself, all people around me felt my love and was getting blessed in the meantime.
Yeah.
So that's what it's about.
Well, Terance, I can't thank you enough for taking the time out to spend with me and to shed some light on your career and the mental toughness, the mental preparedness,
Yes.
this powerful strategy you just left with, the loving yourself. That was, I hope there's some folks out there that listen to this that can take away some nuggets that say, you know what, that resonates with me,
Yeah.
and I'm going to make a change, and I'm going to do
Yeah.
things different. I'm going to work hard, and
Yeah.
I'm going to be a Terance Mathis.
Yeah. I
Thank you, my man.
appreciate you, man.
Absolutely appreciate
Anytime.
you.
Anytime, man. This was awesome. Appreciate it.